let's take a look at how you set up your piece of wood on the CNC machine. First thing you got to do, of course, is get a piece of wood. It should be a rectangle shape. The largest we can do, like 29 by 29 for cutting out. The largest piece of wood we can really fit on here, I think, was 33 by 33. There needs to be some extra space around the edges. Your design should not be butted up right to the edge. You should have like a good solid inch of margin all the way around, because these clamps got to clamp to the wood. We don't want the machine hitting the clamp. That would not be good. That can break that. Anyway, so first thing, get your piece of wood cut. It should be a little bit oversized of what you need. Next thing, you need to get a piece of, notice I have underneath here a piece of, I'm just using 1/4 inch thick plywood. We don't want this to happen. We don't want the machine to dig into our base here. That's not good. That'll ruin it over time. So down here underneath the table have these other pieces of wood that we can use to put underneath. So find a size that will overall fit underneath here. You don't want it really hanging out, because you have to be able to access these holes. So the piece of wood underneath, you don't want to block the holes because you have to put these clamps in. You might have to combine a couple. You might have to cut a new one. We'll see. This should be clear sawdust. So before you lay your stuff down, make sure you took a brush. Make sure there's no chunks of wood or anything on here, because that can change the level of this and mess it up. Keeping this level is very important. We don't want the piece of wood bowing or anything like that, because that will mess up your cuts with the router there. In terms of setting this up, I'm trying to keep equal distance kind of around it with these holes. That just keeps things a little bit easier. And then if you notice here, we got all these clamp kind of things. So these stands here, these metal stands, they kind of have teeth in them. You stand them up that way. Got the 2 different sizes. These bags are very important to keep organized. Keep the stuff in the bags. The bin will be over there. So there's the bin to keep the stuff, and keep the stuff in the bag when you're not using it. There's different lengths of these, so depending on how far away you are from the hole, you need different lengths of these plastic clamp arms. And then we have different clamp screws. There's different lengths. So you can see that's a 70 millimeter. Here's the yellow. Notice the yellow is working pretty good with the 3/4 inch thick and the 1/4 inch underneath it. And then there's shorter stuff too, depending on what thickness of wood you're using. But anyway, you need to get it clamped. You should have 4 of these on just the very edge of your piece of wood. So 1 on each side. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And one way to really test if you're good is take the piece of wood and try and move it. And if it moves, then you got to do a better job clamping. If it doesn't move, then we're good to go. We don't want that piece of wood moving when the CNC machine's working. So basically, once you get to this point, once your piece of wood is clamped down and you have your file up on the computer, your file's like ready to go, then you got to call me over. I'll just double check stuff, make sure our settings are good, and then we'll get it started. So that's all you got to do in terms of setup.